juncture, I'd like to invite Pastor Joshua, who will be opening this event with a word of prayer. He's a husband, father, and a pastoral overseer for families at Watoto Church. Pastor Joshua, would you grace us with the prayer? Thank you.
When I last checked my Bible, looks like you took this title from Jeremiah chapter 6, 16. So I don't know which lawyers are here that will defend the Bible, but this is what it says. The Lord said to his people, stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient path and where the best road is. Walk in it and you will live in peace. But they said, no, we will not. I think they decided to say defiance. But Joan, may the Lord help you. Let us pray. Jesus, every single day we need to make choices. And those choices must be rooted in truth. And you are the truth. We pray that as we reflect on this work of your daughter Joan, entitled Corporates at Crossroads, we pray that we will find that wisdom and walk in that wisdom. We pray that we will not walk in the pride of life, but humbly accept your truth and live by the truth. Open our ears, and may your instruction bring light to our path, that we may enjoy peace and prosperity all the days of our lives. Bless this occasion and bless that which you're going to work and learn in Jesus' name.
At this moment, to welcome with me with a powerful hand clap as we get on our feet. As we get on our feet and clap powerfully for Joan Mugenzi.
As I engage with corporates, I remember one time one person called me, asked me, where are you? I just happened to be at a restore, Garden City. And then the person told me, please don't leave, I want to see you urgently. I said, okay. So So the person came and they were in a crisis. So when I listened to the story, this person was earning a net income of 10,000 US dollars. I won't ask you how much you're earning in terms of whether that is the net that you take home. But that was the net. The education for the children was taken care of, and housing was taken care of. But they were in a mess. I won't get into the details of the mess. The only thing that was common is that the story that they were narrating was similar to the different stories that I had heard from the corporates, regardless of whether they were earning 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, the story was the same. But what one key thread was the comfortable paycheck. And honestly speaking, we invited you here because you have a comfortable paycheck. We guessed that you have a comfortable paycheck. So that comfortable paycheck, with the exception of some of our employers, and we know employers means you do not have a title of CEO for some organization, okay? Because when you're CEO, you're also employed. That's why we are inviting us here to reflect as employers, as leaders in these organizations. What is the message that we want to take home? And so we need to be thinking through, that's the journey that I'm taking us through to kind of relate some of the things that we are talking about. That comfortable paycheck, people forget about the real world after, okay? Because things seem like they would always be happening that way. I know we have quite a number of bankers in the house, okay? We have, I think, 7 banks represented. But at some point, we'll know what is happening with the digital migration, if I may put it that way. When I joined World Vision, I was introduced to the whole aspect of programming. For those of you from the NGO world, you know programming. Do an assessment, go and design a product, develop strategies, and for me that is the catch. Do you have a personal strategy? You're always coming up with these strategies, whether it's a business plan, whether it's that strategic plan that is driving your development work. Do you have a personal strategy?
We need to prepare ourselves to think of self-employment. But to think of self-employment, we need to have value in self-employment. And in self-employment, we should think of where is your passion.
My passion, I personally, is developing others, training others, and I've thought of a direction in that line.
I can say that God has blessed me with a wise wife. And we belong to a savings and credit cooperative society called YSAVE. So we've been able to save over the past number of years. And we've been able to get loans from YSAVE and use the loans to invest in land. We are not business people per se, so when we get our loans, we don't invest them in businesses that will bring profit along the line to pay back the loan, but we use our salary to pay back the loans. But by God's grace, we have some land, which we hope can help us in the future when we have to retire. And also, we've been blessed to have some savings within SSF. So we are watching that space. We are watching that space as it grows. We believe that by the time we have to retire, we shall have some money to add to our savings.
Dr. Magara, assume you qualify to access your funds, the NSSF funds. What would you do with that money?
Well, I already have some businesses I'm doing, so the money would go straight to the businesses. If I still have the strength to start up at the time I get it, there are a few ideas up my sleeve to put the money in.
But what is it about these retirees?
Basically, people at 55 will take out their money but they will still, you'll find invariably, they will either continue to work or try to continue to work because they are seeing a bleak, future. The money is inadequate, insufficient. So within 2 years of taking out that money, indeed, most people will have expended it and gone into what we call retirement destitution, basically state of hopelessness. You're depending on because when they get that money, and we ran something about a year ago, we called it friends with benefits. But when they get that money, then some people will, like Doctor said, he's in a business, and it's very easy for us to say I'm doing business. Without giving the numbers, people will spend that money on housing, education, medical, and dependence. So life pressures will continue as though they were still in employment. In a very short time, it all goes to naught. The people who are putting in business also, within the 2 years, those businesses have collapsed. So you can see it's a very thing. That's not to point a very negative thing about saving benefits.
It's an opportunity that money is there, but how do we use it? Why should you come out of employment and in 2 years you have zero savings left? Now, of course, we are talking a lot about the private sector. Now, if you're coming from government and you're looking forward to the equivalent of NSSF, listen to this. Madam Samali Kiria.
I retired in 2014, and up to now I've not got my gratuity. And I have an auntie also who retired in 1994. She was working in the medical, and she has not yet got her gratuity. I didn't get on the pension payroll until after 8 months. And even then, after I'd gotten it, I think for about 4 months, they stopped giving it out, and I had to go chasing it again, and I was paid again after 6 months. And like last month, we were not paid. July, we were not paid, I think, until almost the end of this month. So we have not been paid August. So if you are not prepared for retirement, it can be very difficult, especially for those who retire and they still have children to educate, or they don't have where to live, you don't have a house built yet, and you are thinking that you use your gratuity to build. So that was my challenge.
So what are we saying? You might be looking forward to graduate, at least with NSSF here. If all your paperwork is in order, in 2 weeks you have your money. So in 2 weeks you get the money, in 2 years you've wiped it out. Okay? So I don't know what that eventually means. Now for the employers here tonight, what are we really talking about? We need to ensure that how are we going to help our staff based on those stories that we are picking. Standard Chartered for me gave me a perfect example of what is going to happen. Okay? They've announced closure of 2 branches, Gulu branch and Manala branch. Yes, we are informed, okay? And 16 staff are going to be directly affected, unless we are saying that when they close those 2, they are going to bring them to the headquarters, which is unlikely, okay? But what are they telling us? Digital banking. And honestly, for me as a customer, I enjoy digital banking. I enjoy being in charge, okay? Sitting in my couch, and what do? I log in, and I transfer money, okay? And now when we have mobile money, you can transfer from your bank account onto your phone. So what's the role of tellers? So you see, we are taking over those roles, and things are happening. In some cases, some contracts are limited. For example, I think with URA, if you get to the commissioner level, the best you can do is sign 2 contracts, okay? because there is only one job left at the top. And there are so many of you that would be eyeing that one job. So what are we saying? As employers, what can we do to enable our staff prepare, and prepare meaningfully, because we know that jobs are not going to be here forever. And we've heard that if you bet your stakes on gratuity, there is 8 months, there is 6 months of receiving zero money. How are you going to live? That's the whole essence as to why we are here. And then part of what impacted me was a book by Jack Canfield, The Success Principles, How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. As I read it, I saw principles that I could apply in my life. And as I saw how that was bearing fruit, I had kind of a desire to meet Jack at some point. And when eventually Alfred contributed to me deciding when I would quit, because he asked me, so, when are you leaving? And I had to set dates of exit, okay? But as soon as I set that date of exit, one of the things that I remembered was that in 2010, when I read the book, I felt I wanted to meet the person. I felt there was something unique. And as I pursued that journey, I was told about a certification program. That, you know, these success principles, there is also a whole group that teaches them, because it's a thick book with 64 principles. How do you cram 64 principles in one's head? So I ended up trained as a trainer for the success principles. I'm a certified trainer. And I use that information. Now, it's embedded in the things that I do, and part of it influenced the book. Because when I went to Arizona in 2015, one of the goals that I wrote down was to write that book. I had 2 goals. One was Dine and Dream. We have an event that we call Dine and Dream. We have it every beginning of year. You know that we love making resolutions. Now for us, we make resolutions fun, because when we make those resolutions, people actually act. It is not just resolutions, because we push them to draw the plans, we push them to come up with activities. So when I came back, Dine and Dream happened. We had the first one, we had the second one. We are going to have the third one in January next year. And hopefully maybe, if you're convinced tonight, you might show up that time, okay? But the second thing I purposed was the book. And so that's how I ended up in Jackie's class. Because when I returned, I said, oh, now I need to go and find an instructor to help me work out my book. The other person that I wanted to meet, because now the other one is a Mzungu, okay? I wanted an African closer. If you've heard about Pakalast, Verako, those things, the telecom companies do not take up that risk. It is this man's company, Mod, okay, Julian Kuna, that does all that stuff. So what are we saying tonight? We are corporates at a crossroads, okay? So you are corporates at a crossroads, and you are leading corporates who are also at crossroads. So there is a whole mix. What can we do? We can change that narrative. And that's why I say that in order to change this narrative, we will need a panel that will help us internalize this message. Thank you so much. I had to engage you for long, and at least we listen to the stories that are the reason for writing.
Thank you, Joan. Please take your seats. So you're talking about the pursuit of purpose, the pursuit of passion. But is it possible to have passion and the paycheck converging, and that you're comfortable, you're doing what you love, like I see you all fired up? How do those two converge? The passion and the paycheck coming together.
I believe that if you have a job that gives you a paycheck that pays for your passion, that's the best job you can ever find yourself in. Because then you're being paid to do what you love to do, okay? And so that already becomes a converging point. Now, the thing about passion, I also say passion does not put food on the table. So that's where wisdom has to come in to decide when you're pursuing your passion, how do you go about it? And that's the reason for the Institute for National Transformation. Because they also help you to think through and ask yourself, how do I create a business environment around my passion? Okay? Because you're looking for that convergence point. If it happens, then yes, it has happened for you, they are giving you that paycheck. However, you can also pursue it as, because for the corporates, I already said, don't be so fast in terms of deciding that you're throwing in the towel. It's okay to work until 55. It's okay to work until 60. It's okay to work until 65, whatever the case might be. The question and the point of reflection is, when you're earning and utilizing that paycheck, how do you maximize so that then there are ripple effects of saying that once upon a time, I worked for Dr. Chiza, now I'm going to have you as well. She once worked for, do they now call it, would it also become a defunct something? Because she worked for the Regional Center for Quality of Health Care. That's the first time I met her. I worked with people that pursue excellence. Jackie, if you think you pursue excellence, try Dr. Chiza, okay? But you should be able to celebrate that I once upon a time worked with the Regional Center. That I once upon a time worked with Uganda Cares. Once upon a time I worked with World Vision. But how do you then invest to back up your passion? I do these things here because they're not the ones that put food to the table, but I also do consultancy because I've done public health, I've done all those communications things. So they give you a bit of money. But when that money is cushioning you, I enjoy the passion because then I am not really relying on that. Of course, after tonight, I believe some of you will say, come and train our staff, okay?
You mentioned, you talked a lot about retirement, but we're saying this is not only about retirement, because you have not retired, for example. I don't think you call yourself a retiree. But, so there's something about, not a self-retirement. I mean, if I'm still young and I am not saying I want to retire, how should this book be relevant to me?
This book is not addressing retirees. I think there's something that we are mixing up. We are saying, knowing that your job isn't eternal and active on that knowledge. I don't know what kind of panic attack the Standard Chartered guys are going through right now. When you're working with a bank, while the rest of you are maybe are paying 23%, 22%, whatever those percentages are, as a staff, you're possibly getting a loan at 11%. Okay? Mortgage at 6%. The moment you lose that job, sorry, the bank no longer remembers that you worked for them. You catch up with the rest of us. Okay? So you immediately leave your 11%. So for the bankers who are here tonight, you know what top-up loans you're getting. You know, to do the different things that you're doing, which is a good thing because you need to invest. But that day you lose that job, because like these ones have just lost their job. We have stories in that book that are about Global Trust Bank, those things that happened then. The restructuring process that Mr. Karekira participated in back in the day. Those things can happen anytime. God forbid tomorrow you can go switch on your, okay, tomorrow is a public holiday, Monday you might open your email, and for those of you in the NGO world, they will say, this major donor, USAID, has withdrawn funding because they have questions. Then what happened? So that book is not addressing retirees, it's addressing all of us. In fact, the chapter on retirement is towards the end to say then you can have an enjoyable retirement, you can transition into that. I've seen the CEO for Mazima Retirement Benefit Scheme, or whatever, okay? So he's also here. Now it shows you that there's a time to plan for that retirement, but here we are talking about in between. What can you do? How do you maximize your time? Because honestly, it's only when you have the energy. When I look at my parents, you know, part of our DNA at home is tea. They would come home and as the person is taking the seat, her chai. They call for the tea. So now I know that when I want to, to reduce the stress, I easily grab a cup of tea. But that time, the energy was high up there. So all of us, we only have so much time to have that high energy. How are you utilizing this energy now? Because we have some stories that just demonstrate foolishness.
Let's appreciate her with a powerful hand. Just share with us briefly. Let me begin with Robbie. Robbie, like I said, when you left World Vision, I personally, who has known you for all these years, I was like, okay, World Vision without Robbie Mugenzi, how does that look like? And it was hard to separate you from World Vision, but finally you left.
I worked for World Vision for 23 years. 9 of them I was communications director. 7 of them I was national director in Uganda. And there are 3 of those years I was regional director for East Africa, based in Nairobi. There was a major restructuring in World Vision, and suddenly I was out of employment. But in my 23 years of working with World Vision, I'd seen a number of transitions from junior staff to senior staff. In fact, my last employment, I was laying off national directors. And as people were leaving the organization, they would behave differently. Some of them would just brush it off their shoulder and move on. But this morning, I had lunch. I was at a meeting and I sat next to a former World Vision staff who left World Vision 17 years ago. When I became national director, I was one of those who left. And he told me that I'm happy to sit next to you, and today I'm going to shake your hand. Because when I left World Vision, my contract ended and was not renewed. I was traumatized. And for a long time, I've hated you. In fact, I had met him at some other function and didn't want to shake my hand. But he said, 17 years later, I've recovered. I can now shake your hand. There are a number of people who left, and they went unfurnished. It was part of the attitude. Now, as working with World Vision and seeing many people leave, I knew that one day my time would come. And I didn't want to be one of those who would leave shaking and throwing tantrums. Because some did throw tantrums, many were unprepared. So as national director, I organized training for those who are reaching almost retirement on life beyond World Vision. There is life after World Vision. And so we organized a series of training for our staff, preparing them for retirement long before they retire. And I was taking notes. I wasn't thinking of retirement, but I was taking notes. And so after I left World Vision, I thought of what should I do next. I was 50. I had been CEO in Uganda of one of the largest NGOs. I worked as a regional director. And I thought I don't want to go and compete with young people shuffling my CVs around. Let me look at my skill set. What is it that I have that I can use in my next life? I looked at my skills and things I had learned over time. I have a Master of Science in Journalism, and my first job was as communications director. So I had all sorts of media, public relations, corporate communication. I'd also worked as a manager for a long time. And when I was a manager, I decided to go for further studies. And I did a Master of Leadership and Organizational Management. So I decided to go into consulting at 2 levels, 2 tracks, communications and management. But I never done consulting. And yet when I read in the newspapers, as they advertise for consulting, they're saying write a technical proposal and a financial proposal and show expressions of interest, a whole new language. So I looked around, and UMI, Uganda Management Institute, was organizing training in consulting skills. And it only costed me $500,000 shillings. And it's one of my best investments. So I went for 1 week at UMI and learned how to write a proposal, how to bid, and how to write that language. And then that has helped me. And then I decided, talking about networking, I said, well, what networks do I have? Because having worked in the NGO sector and also working with the donors and the UN, I had many friends and I had many colleagues So the first thing I did was to send word out. We wrote my CV, and I sent word out in NGOs and in the UN saying I'm now available as a consultant. Also joined Facebook. Because I had been so busy as executive to look at Facebook. You know, it was my kids on Facebook. So I joined Facebook, I looked up all my friends who are now in the corporate world, and guess what? My first contract consulting for the UN came from Facebook.
I think there's a hand clap for that one.
Because one of my friends on Facebook works for World Food Program, posted something. He said, isn't there some decent communicator in this town? So I said, inbox, what do you mean? I'm here. We've been looking for a serious consultant, we couldn't find one. I said, I'm here. He said, fine, take your CV to UNDP. And I got a foot in. And for the next 4 years, I worked as a consultant for UNICEF, but a foot from there. But I got my retirement benefits. Now, before that, when we did this orientation for our staff on preparing for retirement, the importance of saving and investment was important for us. And we had a provident fund. We had a staff savings fund. And I invested a lot of money in that staff savings. And then I would get a loan and pay back. I knew that I would need shelter. Because if you retire and you have no home, you're in trouble. If you're still paying rent. So the first thing I invested in while I was working through the staff savings was to have a house in Kampala. So that if I retire, I have somewhere to live. I got my package from World Vision, and a lot of ideas came into my mind. I've never done business. And so going on a trip to Dubai or India was going to be a big risk. And I knew people from the statistics who had lost their money within 2 years. People were helping them to invest. So I took my retirement package, I took my NSSF money. If you are 50 and you don't work for 1 year, you can get you don't have to be 55. So I took my retirement benefit from World Vision, I took my NSSF, and I had learned that don't put all your investments in one basket, because if that basket is kicked, you're in trouble. So I took a chunk of that money and bought houses for rent, so that at the end of the month, I could get rental income. I took part of the money, I put it in treasury bills and treasury bonds, as well as fixed deposit, so that it could mature at different times. Because as somebody who had earned a salary for 23 years, not having money coming was a nightmare. So I'm having the best of my life because I do consulting, I have investments, I travel, I enjoy my grandchildren. So retirement is great.
I've been working for the Federation of Ghana Employers for the last 25 years. Oops. And I'm stepping down on the 30th of November this year. I clocked 55 some years back, and I got my package from NSS. So within 3 weeks, I had got that money. But of course, I didn't eat it. Yes, I was still getting a paycheck because the retirement age was 60, which I will be on the 30th of November this year. So I reinvested that money. It is still making more money for me. And I continue this saving with NSSF. So, Richard, after 30th November, I'm collecting my second part. Now, I started employment with a trade union, and I was the first graduate to work for the trade union. I got that job myself. I was not helped by parents at all. But before I got that job, I used to bake buns and sell them to the banks. There was no job then. So when I got into that job, I still continued with my selling of bonds to the banks. Because the union I worked with was a union representing interests of the bankers. So I had access to them. Now, right from my first job up to the job I'm leaving on 30th November this year, I did not have a very good paycheck. And because of that, I started right from day one to be innovative, to supplement that small paycheck. Now, I got a lot of invitations to be employed in the bank. And I recall in my senior 6th vacation, I had a temporary job with Uganda Commercial Bank, which was giving me some good money, which prepared me to go to Makerere. But for some reasons, I didn't want a job which kept me on the seat from morning to evening. So my looking for a job was not really money, but a job where I would find job satisfaction. So I had to stick to a job which was paying me little money, but which I enjoyed doing, and which gave me an opportunity to venture into other things. So right from day one, I had a garden where we would plant food so that we don't spend money on buying food, and then the small paycheck pays for other things. Now, my husband, Mr. Sendawia,
is he here tonight?
He's not. Unfortunately, Joan didn't ask me to bring him. Otherwise, I would have gladly brought him. He was working in Uganda Commercial Bank, of course, a manager. We are staying in a bank house in Tinda. Of course, there was a vehicle which would pick us in the morning and the children. And now the commercial bank takeover and all came about. And the job disappeared. He was 35 by then. We had young children. The eldest was 80 years old. And I had my small paycheck. So as everything happens, we had to move out of the luxurious house from Mutinda to our uncompleted shelter in Kanyanya. No electricity, no water. And the bank vehicle was no more. Okay? So this is the corporate side, what? So here was a young woman with very young children and an unemployed husband at 35. Now, it really had to make a lot of planning. One thing I realized, I think we women are more enterprising. Nobody, when men lose employment,
I need to see the men planning for that.
35 years, they get so demoralized, so depressed, and if you don't have a strong woman to back you behind, that's when they really deteriorate and disappear. But Mr. Senabia was lucky. So we had to struggle. Lucky enough, Matthias was working in the bank, but he's an artist. So while he was working in the bank, he was also a briefcase printer. And so we knew he had that, so we had to find a way of creating a business which would occupy him. So the little money I was earning and what he had saved in UCB and what he got from his NSSF, he was able to start a company, St. Christian Graphics, which is going up to now and which has kept him. Now, I would have stepped down 5 years back, but as Joan says in her book, I had so many fears. Yes, I knew I had that money in NSSF, but then I said, yeah, but still, how will I make it? So I said, okay, since the retirement is 60, let me hang on up to 60. And at 60, I will do what? I will step. Again, 60 is coming, and I was still getting a lot of persuasions. But you've built the federation from nothing to where it is now. Who are you leaving it with? I said, no, I'm not going to listen to any of that. I'm not the federation. The federation can continue without me. I have to move out. So moving out, where am I going? Now, the experiences we've gone through with my husband made me make one resolution. My children are not going to look for employment. I've got boys. So we've trained them to employ themselves. So each one of them have started their own companies. The young one actually has 2 companies. He's in catering business. The elder one is in printing like his father. But these companies had to be supported. So the money I've been saving, I've been injecting in the businesses of those young men to make them survive. And then I'm a partner and a director in those companies. So when I leave, I'm going to put a leg in those companies. I have an office. I also, of course, St. Christian Graphics is also there. I've already created a space where I'm going to put my desk, so I will see. I'm not going to be an
Keith, this is about investment, and if you look at the stories that we've had so far, it's about investment. What would you suggest to people here about investing, looking forward, but with an eye for investment?
Okay, thank you very much, Joan, for inviting me. Good evening to all of you. Reducing the average age here after the previous 2 speakers. I used to tell myself many years ago that if you have good money on your bank account, on a current account, I do. You're not thinking enough. Money shouldn't be on your bank account, it should be invested in something. All of us need to be mathematicians. Even if you're not very good at mathematics, you need to compute. And I want to tell you something about a compound annual growth rate, CAGR. In case you have Google,
Compound what?
Compound annual growth rate.
Okay.
Compound annual growth rate. In case you have, just Google it. You don't have to know the formula, how to calculate it. But it's important for you to use that formula every time you're comparing investments you've done over the past. The piece of land you bought in earlier at 10 million in 2001, it's now 150 million. You feel very happy about it after 16 years. Very proud of yourself. But if you put 150 million, then and 10 million after about 16 years, you'll be surprised that the annual average return is about 12%. Now, is 12% good or not? There was a time you could borrow money from the bank, buy a piece of land. The cost of interest was lower than the capital appreciation of the piece of land. Not anymore. The space for what to invest in is reducing. Treasury bill rates have now collapsed to about 10, 11%. But just a few months ago, 2016, February, around elections where people were talking about JPAM and all this, interest rates were about 23%, 20%. People were thinking about migrating, others were buying 5-year bonds locked in at 20%. Now they're getting that interest for the next 5 years. And guess when that bond is going to retire? Just before the next election. When the rates will go up again. If you follow the cycle from 2000, towards the election, the rates just go up. And that's why I say you must be mathematicians. Just follow the trends, look at the graphs, get advisors, and you know where to invest. Now, you think about investing in rental units, very good, it's good, diversify, well done, Robbie. But if you were to use the same calculator, the CAGR, you'd be able to compare whether you're earning more from your rental units, notwithstanding the headache of, the plumbing is not working. They call you in the middle of a meeting and tell you about all sorts of things. Some leave without paying, and I think the recovery for rental units could be about 13 or 15 years. So if you invest in something that can pay you back within 10 years, if you invest in a property, whether you're going to buy it or build it, if you can pay you back your capital investment within 10 years, that's a fantastic investment. Because the underlying capital growth is about 5%, 5 to 7%, plus the 10% per annum. Equities tend to perform a lot better, but I think the gains for equities happen a lot more during the initial public offers. There's still room. If you talk to investment advisors, they'll tell you where which equities are good to invest in, whether in Uganda or in Kenya. The thing I just want to leave with you is that every time you go to make an investment decision, however experienced you are, there's always that fear that comes into your heart. It's like bathing in cold water. Before you get into a shower, you're really petrified, you're whistling, you're running around. But I mean, eventually when you get in there, you start asking yourself, why was I afraid? Because you're actually enjoying the cold shower, isn't it? So just, overcome that fear, be courageous. Do your calculations, get to, always pray for wisdom before you make decisions. I've been praying for that for, I don't know, God knows how long. From the time I was leaving university, that was one of the key prayers I used to have, wisdom and favor. Because there's so much that happens in your life that you have no control over at all. I'm standing here before you, CEO of Capital Markets Authority. If you ask me where I would be 5 years ago, Dr. Magara knows, Mr. Wavum knows, I would never have known, and they really know the history. So standing here is just a testimony. So there's so much we have no control over. I think 50-70% of what we end up being or doing is just because of divine providence.
Let me lastly go to Fabian. Fabian, you've been quiet, but you have the advantage of having listened to all the panelists, and you can now speak from a whole breadth of perspective. Tell us a little about looking forward, still in terms of investment. What banking products is there? What products are available? If I'm thinking investment, what are my possibilities? What, if I'm thinking banking, what are the products that could be available for me as a corporate at a crossroads?
We talk about the issues of retirement, the issues of investment, and of course, having an advantage and opportunity to listen people who have retired, people who are preparing people for retirement, and of course, a whole lot of experience. And of course, you mentioned a very good thing of diversification. When we were doing finance, I remember we talked about managing risk, and it is a thing that he has perfected. And of course, when it comes to investment and when it comes to banks, many people fear banks. And usually when people talk about banks, they think about loans. Every time you say there is a bank, say, how are they going to lend us money? People never think about savings, not knowing that there is quite a lot that you can get by saving, putting your money in a bank. Banks have different opportunities that you can get. He talked about diversification, he talked about a regular income. A bank can avail you an opportunity of getting a regular income when you've retired. For example, you can do a fixed deposit account whereby you ask a bank that every month, give me my interest. That will avail you that regular income. Again, it goes with the negotiations. Most people don't understand what banks can do. And some people don't know that they can negotiate with banks. Currently, we have what we call key facts document. Those of you who have worked with banks, every time you go to a bank and you want a service, you are now obliged to sign what we call a key facts document. This is the one which stipulates the features, conditions, terms of the service, including interest rate, including whether it is floating or declining, so that at the end of the day you don't say, now the rates have changed, I've seen my interest has also changed, because you didn't understand what you were going for. So now banks give you an opportunity to be able to understand what you are going in for, whether fixed deposit, whether you want to do a medium term, kind of investment, whether you want to, if it is borrowing again, whether you want to borrow long term. That's why banks usually are accused of being slow in giving out money, and they always prefer to go to money lenders. Money lenders don't care at whatever project you are going for, but banks will sit down with you and analyze and determine whether, first of all, you have the experience. If you've just retired, I'm glad you didn't go for business. You made the right choice. We don't know business, especially corporates. You know where you've been. You don't know what's going on in Chikugo. You will get out with your money, you think you can board a flight to India, bring the merchandise, fill up a shop. It won't work because you don't know. And this is what the banks will always tell you. You haven't been in that thing, you don't have the experience, therefore the risk is high, we can't give you money. Then you will say these banks, they don't know what they are doing. Banks always try to understand whether you have the capacity, first of all, to take this money and be able to bring it back. If you are doing business, do you have the experience? Are you there? For us corporates, we are always in offices. You are not present where your business is. There's no way you can run a business where you are not. There's what they call telephone farming. You know, you can farm and then it is on phone. Are the things okay? Have you injected the cows and so on? Whether somebody has done it or not, you don't know. And before you know, there is nothing on the ground because you are not there. So when a bank gets into such a position to understand that you are not present, they won't give you their money. They are helping you to learn, to understand where you can invest and which risks you want to take on. So banks give you a lot of opportunities. Come and work with the banks. Get to understand what the banks do. They are there for you. And because of you, they exist. If you are not there, if you are not doing business, currently we have now a lull in the economy. Enterprises are not doing so well. Demand is low. Of course, banks are also suffering because they can't lend. You can hear that private sector credit hasn't been growing the way it should. And everybody wants that to grow. Because if there's no private sector credit, there will be no investments. And if there are no investments, there are no jobs. And if there are no jobs, you know what you'll be ending up with. So it is important that you help the banks to do what they're supposed to do. They charge you the interest rates they charge you, and then you say they are very high. No bank will want to charge you because there are many banks and there is competition. But they charge you what they charge you because of the perceived risk, because of the costs involved in lending that money to you. The day we will have costs come down, the day we'll have you become a good payer so that default rates come down, we'll eventually have these rates come down to the level where you would want them to be. When you hear of the interest rates in Europe, in fact some of them are negative, somebody will come here and say, why don't we go and borrow from here and bring the money here? But there is what they call the sovereign risk. The risk of those countries is different from the risk of this country. In fact, if they bring the euros or the dollars to lend them to this economy, it will be a totally different rate because the risks involved here are different from the other environments, and people need to understand all that. And this is where it all comes to where we are. What are the dynamics? What are the banks doing? What shouldn't they do? You know, they are not there to see people suffer, because if they lend money to people and they are not able to pay, or if there are no people to lend money to, they are in no business. They will get your savings if at all you've been able to save. Our savings rate are one of the lowest. You, the corporates, don't save. People in Kikubo don't save. We are talking of about a saving rate of about 14% to GDP, one of the lowest, and most of it is NSSF, the mandatory one. So where do you expect the banks to get the money to be able to lend at a low rate? It becomes a very, very big challenge. So there are a lot of opportunities. If you meaningfully come and you work with the banks, they'll be able to help you. There's no economy that has ever grown without banks. We need to know that. Thank you very much.
A lot has been said, and I think quite a lot needs to be heard about diversification. A couple of cases come up. When you talk of equity, and Keith, I don't mean to water down your comments, but a couple of things come up to mind. Safaricom comes up to mind. Global financial crisis comes up to mind. A friend of mine who did invest quite a lot in Nigeria, they've been doing a lot around the money markets. He told me a story how he had grown up to about $150,000, and overnight his investments went down to $20,000 because of the global financial crisis. I got involved quite early in age, invested in business, and I borrowed money as a banker at very interesting rates, and I lost all the money because of telephone business. So I think diversification really is something that we need to think about quite carefully, and I think that's where Robbie's advice comes in, spreading money across the baskets does quite a lot. Lastly, I don't think I subscribe to the concept of retirement, because I think it kind of introduces a stopping point, and yet I believe it's more of a transition from one form in society to another, because we move from one form to another. So I think it's really that as well. We have quite a lot of society paradigms to deal with, And I think that's the bigger question. What can we do as a society to transition our thinking? Because what I think we have is a bigger societal problem than just a corporate problem. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Interesting thoughts.
It's recommended that you don't expose more than 10% of your net worth in equities. When you're younger, you can expose 15%, and you start heading towards retirement, it's better to start reducing that. And when you get to 50, it might even be wise not to be in equities at all unless you're planning to write them in your will. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I mean, I've known people who have inherited equities from their parents, so it's a good thing. So I fully agree with it. Safaricom is now at 26. It was at 5 shillings at the time of the IPO. That's about 5 times since 2008. Yes, those dips happen, but you can ride the waves much better. Even within equities, it's good to diversify. Don't get all your 10% of your net worth and put it in one stock. Get 4 or 5 stocks and spread that 10% of your net worth across equities.
Yeah, I quite agree with Paul's statement that retiring is transitioning from one form of employment to another. In fact, the terminology now is retiring. You are removing the old tires and putting on new tires.
Rob, you want to make a comment on this? And Fabian, before I invite the guest of honor to do his thing?
Yes. I just wanted to add to the issue of diversification. As you diversify investments, of course, you mentioned the issue of somebody putting money in equities and all of a sudden the prices are down. There is the issue of doing something short-term, long-term, medium-term. If you are going to invest in forests, that's long-term. You won't have money now. You won't have money in the next 5 years. Equities, they are long-term investments. It is something for people to wait. But if you think, speculation, the other day we made shares where the IPO was at 25, then the following day at 75, and you expect that to continue, it won't continue. It won't be the same thing. So there is the issue as we diversify, looking at the periods of maturities.
Joan gave us an assignment to do some calculations about when do you want to retire and when would you like to die. And when I did mine, I discovered that from when I stopped working for World Vision, I have 45 years more to live if I die at my preferred age. So you can't talk about retirement for 45 years. Some people ask me that you retired. No, I've not retired. I stopped working for World Vision. That means that I've retired. Life must continue, and there are many ways. You slow down, you do more of the things you love doing because you don't have to do them, but you have to be more meaningful and leave a legacy. So let's not talk about retirement, but let's talk about retiring, putting on new tires, because the journey continues. Thank you.
So tonight, we are privileged and honored and humbled to have in the house Mr. Richard Owire, whom we shall welcome with a powerful hand clap.
This book, like Joan said, is not about retirement. It is about preparing you for retirement, and it's also about you who is in employment or who employs others to help those people serve you even better, and it does that. Of course, we all know now that job guarantees are a thing of the past. So corporates at a crossroads, corporates at a crossroads, and yesterday we had that conversation again. Teaches you as an employee to focus on becoming a person of value by learning to invest in yourself. It is important that employees master this. Of course, we're talking about ourselves. The more you invest in yourself, especially in your soft skills, the more valuable you become to yourself and to your employer. And this is common knowledge. The book is a great practical resource which all of us and the respective organizations represented here should embrace as a tool. There are not very many that, especially written by our local resource. So I think it's a very good book. Joan has translated workplace tools and processes like strategic planning and made them applicable to individuals. So the things we sit down and do for our employers, for the corporate, the owners of the companies, all the companies, and we become very good at them, we unfortunately many times do not apply them to our own lives. So what Joan has done is put together a tool that actually links our mind frames into our, what we do at work into our personal lifestyles. And we can apply those same principles and those same things very effectively to our own lives. So let us address the post-employment challenge by beginning the discussion right with our employees, for those who are employers. Retirement is inevitable for all of us, either by hitting retirement age or other factors such as restructuring processes, withdrawal of funding, or simply becoming incapacitated. Factors beyond our control, you know, so it inevitably comes to all of us. There was a time when professors retired, and I dare say even some of our own parents, and left universities and the civil service only to realize that they had no houses. They had no place to call home, you know, and they've been, she told us, they've been living in big institutional houses, big amenities and all that, and the next day you're living in a shelter, which is yet to become a house. And it's real. I mean, it happens up to now. There are many people, many of us in these rooms, in this room who might be, you know, perhaps it's ringing bell and saying, you know, if retirement happened today, what would happen? Or if Stanchart said we're now going digital banking, what would happen? Or if NSSF said that tomorrow, Richard, you're going home, what would happen? You know, so it's real life, yeah. And so this generation has got an opportunity to learn from those who have gone through these phases. You know, our parents and people slightly older, they've had these opportunities. You know, many of them had come out of universities and gone into employment. In my employment life, I worked for BAT, British American Tobacco, when I just started my career. And the older people told us that when they left the universities, they would go into sessions, first of all, of teaching them how to behave like you know, cutlery and all that, and how you hold the wine glass and what you know. So they were conditioned to live a certain lifestyle. And then they were given an institutional house, an institutional car, and all that. And so life went on that way. And unfortunately, some of them who are now older when we joined, and things had changed, did not have that cutlery as their own or their houses, so it was very challenging. At NSSF, we have seen savers, and we'll talk about this, wipe up their savings within 2 years of retiring. She mentioned it and I validated it. We have seen people struggle to start businesses after retirement. And how do these survive? I mentioned it when Joan pointed me out. 30% depend on relatives, children, and friends. 26% depend on other social networks, and 90% of social retirees face social and economic challenges due to insufficient or lack of steady income after retirement. 38% lose social status as they survive on handouts. I mean, we all know, the moment you're surviving on handouts, it all collapses. Your world around you collapses. You start feeling, you know, if I'm being called Mr. Awire today and you become dependent tomorrow, then I start, you know, when you call me Mr. Awire, I think you're, you know, you're mocking, you know, I think. So, you know, and it happens to many of our members. So the time to plan for retirement is now, and like Joan says in her book, your jobs are not internal, act on that knowledge. So, you know, the operational word here is act on that knowledge. So we can, I mean, we have all been through sessions of self-improvement, John's motivational session and all that. But if you do not act on that, then it just becomes one of those other things you experience and keep, you know, in your shelf somewhere. So plan to have different income streams by, of course, I must be talking to the converted in this room. Different income streams by making wise and where possible varied investments. These people here have spoken about investments. So this book supports, again from a selfish perspective, it supports the NSSF agenda of seeing employees in all sectors live a better life now and after employment. It directly speaks to our push for voluntary memberships and contributions. So there we go. As of now, as you know, for most people, the only life-saving in here, especially in Uganda, like everybody else has mentioned who spoke before me, is their NSF savings. But again, we all know it is very risky. You know, these people talk about replacement income. You know, replacement income is if I was saving now or living a lifestyle of NSF Corporation Secretary, and 20 years down the road I've been saving, will I able to live the lifestyle of Corporation Secretary of NSF? So talks in that in that direction. We should be able to save as much as possible to be able to replace that lost income that we earn while we're still meaningfully employed, resourcefully employed, retirement, but I'm still living my lifestyle. So this small savings with NSF is a risk, but which can be mitigated by acting on the knowledge that our jobs are not eternal, and that's what Joan tells us. There was no better choice of participants for this meeting, and I commend Imagine Africa for mobilizing all of us to attend. This audience is a great mix of decision makers and influencers. Let us make post-employment planning part of our HR mandate when we go back home. Fabian, the people who make decisions in these big institutions. If we get this on our HR agenda or mandate, and not simply a way to prepare people when they are due for exit. So that when I come in the organization, I am told that when I get a paycheck rise today, I'm also going to be thinking I should be made aware that I should be putting that somewhere else, to cater for my post-employment life. The idea of the panel discussion, of course, focusing on post-employment challenges was great. But again, what has each one of us taken from these discussions? That's what is important. What are you going to do about the message, or the messages that I've got? How do we take this message beyond the room for the millions who are not here? We are only a small representation of many others. Joan will not bring everybody here. It will be very costly, But we are messengers who can take this back and share with the millions who are not here. How can the media, the media is here, package this information for it to spread? The media houses are represented here, of course, but my hope is that they will not simply make mention of a book launch, but rather start a media campaign generating content that helps employees to face the upcoming challenges. The book reviews can be a good starting point, but the subject of post-employment is broader than just the book reviews. What can we learn from retirees? What can we learn from those who have lost jobs before they hit retirement age? What can we do in our Ugandan context where dependence is high? We definitely must do something to avoid having millions retire into poverty. Everyone should take the strategic retirement, and that is, strategic retirement really is, yes, I am here today, and what will be happening to actively think about our retirement. It is important that we do not live in this room what we have learned, but carry away what we have learned to share with others. Let us support this cause. Joan has provided us with a tool that has real-life stories that I'm sure many of us can relate to. We have a tool that is based on a clear understanding of our local circumstances and an international context. Because fortunately, Joan has had the privilege of being exposed to circumstances here and circumstances out there, and she imports quite a lot of experiences out there also into her book, which is a good thing for us. Some of the details in the book can get a little discomforting, but what better way to deal with life's realities than confronting the brutal facts? So let us have our employees go through the life planning that is clearly articulated in corporates at the crossroads. The journey to help employees to plan better in this country, it starts with those of us who are here tonight. Let us have the organizations represented here committing to this cause. I'm certain that when you express interest, Joan and her team will be set to walk the journey with you. So I'm sure Joan is available. She has launched the book, and her and her team will be available to handhold or to support in sharing your dreams or aspirations. So again, it's obviously an opportunity for her to showcase what she can do and market herself. So we cannot shun the pain in this subject. Whereas the more comfortable option in circumstances like this would be to bury our head in the sand, corporates at Crossroads provide a more pragmatic option or options. And Joan, thank you very much for sharing your motivations and thoughts with the whole world in the great piece of work that we are about to launch. And it is indeed now my exceptional honor and privilege to move over and I'll be guided in how I launch corporates at Crossroads. I hope that each one of you will leave with a copy of the book, and I suppose that Joan will be available to autograph this so that you feel real attachment to the book and the person, the author of the book. Thank you so much.
Applaud with a warm hand clap. And then you fold it nicely, hand it over to the chief guest, who will receive it with a flourish as we clap. And then he will have the pleasure to declare the book officially launched.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and all Ugandans at large, it is my honor and pleasure to officially launch Corporates at the Crossroads by Joan Mugenzi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mowile. We do appreciate your indulgence. Thank you, Rosemary. And then now to the gentleman in whichever order you choose. Your favorite. Next in line, I think, is Keith. Oh, Robbie. Oh, you had jumped the queue. And finally, last but not least, to Keith. And our chief guest, thank you for making time to be part of what has been a wonderful event. And like I said, thank you everyone.